Welcome back in live to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Today we'll be previewing, in my mind, one of the most exciting games this Saturday. Wisconsin Notre Dame playing in Chicago. Two teams that have traditionally been a run-heavy kind of in the trenches battle, and it should be another really good one. Dill, what do you think are the overarching takeaways from this matchup? Who do you think wins?
Uh, my pick just on a pure value move is Notre Dame. I think them being plus 200 on the money line is kind of ridiculous against a Wisconsin team that has really, I think, been a somewhat disappointing start to this year. Now, I get that they lost to Penn State and it was kind of close, but I just don't see how this. I think that game should have been way more lopsided if Sean Clifford hits like two of those wide open throws to like those wideouts were running free. I think at least three or four times. So he hits a couple of those. That game is a blowout, and it's not even close. So I really don't see how
in the red zone too. They had a block kick, a fumble on like the 10. So
yeah, but I think they only had 3 drives where they actually moved the ball like at all. So that's I don't see this as being I don't think Penn State's that great either. I mean, Auburn is what they are, and that was a super close game. So I just don't love either of these teams. I mean, the big is how Graham Mertz really doesn't look like he has it at all. So I don't think they should be giving up a plus 200 line against a Notre Dame team that, albeit hasn't been impressive, but they can play.
Yeah, that I kind of am in the same boat. I think it's going to be a really close game. Again, the two teams kind of play the same way. It's like supposed to really go. I think the over under is 46, so it's going to be a low scoring kind of smash football affair. Laying 5.5 points with Wisconsin on a neutral site just seems kind of crazy to me. If it's in Camp Randall and I saw this line, that okay, maybe makes sense. I'd still probably take Notre Dame as the road dog going up to Camp Randall. In a neutral site in Chicago, where I would think Notre Dame would probably get more fans there than Wisconsin does. I just don't see the value in taking Wisconsin with the points. I see a lot of value taking Notre Dame either 5.5 or just straight up on the money line. I think this is a very winnable game for them. I think I'd echo what you said. Notre Dame hasn't looked very good. Going to overtime with a really bad Florida State team, only beating Toledo by 3. They kind of looked better against Purdue. They let Purdue hang around, but they started kind of getting back to that, like, okay, let's feed Kyron Williams, which is what I think they need to do. Some of my fundamental things that I think is going to win Notre Dame this game is get it back to your All-American running back. I mean, Kyron Williams is an All-American talent in the backfield. He should be getting 15-plus touches easily.
The only thing I will say is, do you not have like some concerns? Like that offensive line has not looked good at all. Like they've looked really pretty bad, honestly. Yeah. So it's like to me, I don't see how they're going to be able to run into the teeth of that Wisconsin, which has looked good actually. I think they can stop the run.
They always can, yeah.
So my thing is where I think Notre Dame can win is Wisconsin's like allowing guys to run free in the back end. And I think you do have 2 wideouts, especially in Avery Davis and Kevin
Austin. They were impressive.
Yeah, Kevin Austin. So those two, I mean, Kevin Austin really in the Florida State game flashed big, and Avery Davis had a very good game against Purdue. So I think that's where they might be able to expose him is hitting some of those deep throws that Sean Clifford was not hitting in that Penn State game. And I think the X factor is Chris Tyree out of the backfield. Like you make those Wisconsin linebackers run with him, I think they will struggle with dealing with him in the pass game.
Yeah, my problem with Tyree is I feel like they're using him too much as like a two-headed monster, and it's not that I don't like his game. I think his game is just more towards what you said. out of the backfield as a mismatch for linebackers in space as opposed to running between tackles, where I think you have one of the best running backs in the country at doing that. Kyron Williams is really good in those tight spaces, runs the ball hard, and then has breakaway speed when he needs to be. So I think, again, what they need to – it's not necessary. I think you're right in saying that that's probably not the key to beating Wisconsin is feeding Kyron Williams, because I don't know how good that running game will be against a stout Wisconsin front seven. But they do have some playmakers on the edge, and I think we have to talk about Michael Mayer, who just didn't show up against Purdue. He had one catch for 5 yards. I mean, he's the best tight end in the country. In my opinion, I don't think there's a better tight end in the country.
Mhm.
Get him the ball, feed him. I know he's had a few tough, unfortunate drops to start the season, but he's still a matchup nightmare. One of those guys where linebackers can't cover him because he's too fast, and he's too big for DBs to cover him. I think he truly has the chance to be one of the best college tight ends we've seen in a really long time. So I want to see him get peppered with the ball again. One catch for 5 yards just ain't going to cut it.
Yeah, and then just looking at the other side of that matchup, I think what Notre Dame is, if anything, if nothing else, they're taking the ball away from teams right now. I think Kyle Hamilton had how many picks? He's got at least 2 because he had 2 against Florida.
I think he has 3.
Or is it
one against Purdue, I believe.
Yeah, so he's playing incredibly well. So it's like they're taking the ball away, and Graham Mertz is still throwing picks. So it's like that matchup makes me, if they're turning the ball over against Notre Dame, they're going to really struggle because they're not designed to be a team that turns the ball over at all.
Yeah, that is the primary reason why I take Notre Dame. I'm just going to straight up take them on the money line. Give me the 2 like
that's what I like.
I think Notre Dame can win this game. I think Notre Dame will win this game, and I think it's primarily because Graham Mertz is not that good of a quarterback. He has one of the easiest jobs, maybe next to C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. When you have such a good running game, it's not that hard to do what they ask of you, and he's just painfully average. And I think when Graham Mertz, I think we saw that against Penn State, when the game was in Graham Mertz's hands, when he had to make the play and he didn't have a run game to kind of work off of, he's not a good quarterback.
Yeah, because Penn State's front seven shut him down, obviously. I still haven't seen what like that old Wisconsin offensive line. Like they're still kind of I don't want to call them average, but they kind of look a little average. So it's like
neither of these teams have good offensive lines, like to their standard. Like Notre Dame's has not been good either.
Yeah, and I don't think like Wisconsin's been like a problem, but they're not smashing the ball on teams. Like I think their starting running back only was averaging about 3-4 yards against Penn State, and granted, good front seven, but still, like you want to see Wisconsin averaging probably 5+. That's probably what they need to be doing from their starting running back to be an effective team, and they're just not doing it right now. So you put again, as you said, you can't have Graham Mertz needing to throw the ball. I think he threw it almost 40 times against Penn State, and that's too many. That's too much throwing. Well, I don't know if it was that much, but it was around at least 30. So he can't be that guy. He can't be throwing the ball 30+.
22, 37, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Like,
he threw the ball 37 times and only threw it for 185 yards.
You can't have him throwing 30+
yards per attempt. And I think one other thing to say, and I'm not like ripping on Wisconsin because I still think they're a solid team, and this game is truly going to be a toss-up, especially because Notre Dame hasn't been great. I don't think Chez Malusi is like the running back you want at Wisco. I think he's kind of Wisco historically likes to get downhill, kind of one cut, and then John Taylor obviously was a very special.
And they've been Heisman level good. Like they've been exceptional.
Taylor got the transfer out of Clemson.
Ingram,
because he didn't crack it. Granted, Clemson has a good backfield, but Chez Malusi, he's no John Taylor.
No, he's not close to that.
And he's not necessarily like John Taylor. He doesn't run the ball as hard as some of those other guys have run the ball. And so, for those reasons and kind of outside of Danny Davis and Jake Ferguson, like not a ton of reliable guys. You look at that Penn State guy, that Penn State game, Danny Davis caught 8 catches for 99 yards, and Jake Ferguson caught 9 catches for 52 yards. So that is well over 50% of your production receiving. So it's like 75% of your production.
And they don't have anybody to make big plays. And quite frankly, if Florida State doesn't make big plays, they don't sniff.
Yeah,
They don't even sniff
the game was
Notre Dame
much
in that
less
game.
competitive than it was outside of like
Yeah,
a
well,
90
but that's like if you could expose Notre Dame, like maybe that favors well for Wisconsin, but they don't have big playmakers. Danny Davis is a possession wideout. Malucci he hasn't hit big plays at all this year, or he did not against Penn State, which is kind of the test you would have wanted to see.
Yeah.
And Jake Ferguson also a possession tight end. So who's gonna go catch a 70-yard touchdown? And Graham Mertz certainly is not a guy who's gonna throw. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so I just love the value. I think the value's there. I think this game smells like a pick 'em to me. And you give me a plus, what is it, plus 200 for Wisco? I think that's a decent line.
And again, the over under is extremely low. I think it's 46. So it's going to be a close, low scoring game. And I mean, I'm putting my money on the better quarterback with the better coach, with like the more historically, like they win those football games. Not that Wisconsin hasn't, not that Paul Chris isn't a good coach, and not that Wisconsin doesn't win those games, but I mean, Notre Dame has a very, very good record under Kelly. They don't normally lose regular season games that they're supposed to lose.
This just isn't the Wisconsin. It's not a Wisconsin team turning the ball over way too much and not really hammering it on people. So
yeah.
I mean, Paul Chris thrives in what he does, and he doesn't seem to have the guys to do what he wants to do. So,
and for the love of God, get Michael Mayer more touches. Holy smokes, please.
Oh yeah, he has touched the ball for sure.
I couldn't believe. I mean, we had Notre Dame -7 last week, and like Michael Mayer just nowhere to be found. I was like getting so pissed. So hopefully they try to look to work it to him. He's again one of the best tight ends in the country. I think there's some really good value for everybody to take Notre Dame. Anything else you want to say on this before we close it out?
No, I think I got out most of what I wanted to say.
I think to close it up, I think I like one. I guess one thing I'll say before we leave the episode, Jack Cohen is getting way too much heat. Like I called him a game manager, but he's actually played really well. And again, not the best competition, but he threw some really good balls against Purdue. He played really well against the Florida State team that came out really inspired to play. That's a talented team that if you can get riled up and ready to play, like they'll come out and push you. And I think he's been better than I thought. I think I worry about that offensive line. I worry about them not being able to establish the run. But
yeah, I mean, my thought is he has looked good throwing the ball deep. That's the important thing he's shown me for this game is he has thrown the deep ball pretty good. So
I think it's a pick 'em. I mean, it's like two teams that have similar identities, good coaches. I'm taking the better quarterback on a neutral site at plus 180. It's just the value's there. If you continuously take picks with good value, it's gonna work out. I think the value's here now. It should be a great game. Plus 180 is great. And if it gets up to 6.5, 7, I'd take the spread too, because I don't think Wisconsin's gonna outscore more than 7. Notre Dame's certainly covering touchdowns. Could be a one possession game. So I like this pick a lot. Both money line.
Excited for the game too.
It's gonna be a fun game. It's gonna be a fun noon game. Kind of get us to that A&M Arkansas game. So we'll be reviewing that one too. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate you guys checking us out. Let us know in the comments what you think of our analysis. I know some of the Notre Dame fans have some words for us, which we always appreciate. But once again, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.